it's not super easy to gain a whole lot of places here, particularly on lap 1. It's a big traffic jam into the village complex, and you've really got to stay safe if you want to finish. And then everybody is off up the Wellington Straight and getting into their various places. So you don't want to be putting yourself a row or two back from where you're hoping to end up. So qualifying, like in every track, absolutely vital.
Yeah, and Braxok has actually lit up the first sector yet again as we look at Machete, who he's on a bit of an outlap at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. Zux also sets a personal best middle sector, which is actually quicker than Janos Braxok. Zux, another Hungarian that absolutely flies around the Silverstone International Grand Prix circuit as well. Seems to really play to his strengths as we go through the final corner at Club and over the start-finish line. Where does this lap put Zux? I think that first sector was a little slow, but it puts him third on the grid, just 12,000 shy of our championship leader, Mark Schluter here. But Braxok has lowered the margin yet further, 126.381. That puts him nearly 2.5 tenths clear of Schluter there. So Braxok, who joined a race late this season in Australia, has taken a while to really get back up to speed, but now he is firing well and truly on all cylinders in this qualifying session. We're just under a minute left to go. Here comes Hanko. What can the man who finished second last time out, our reigning pro champion, do on his final flying run? This is going to be crucial for Go Team as well in that close fight for the championship, as we see a little bit of sliding through the village complex as he goes through Aintree. Couple of tiny improvements here. Machete has set personal best first sector here. Patrick Hanko, though, 3 tenths slower than him and not on a personal best, though, so he needs to find something on this final run. As Oldenmenger as well is going a little bit quicker, but he is down in 9th after a strong start to the season. Oldenmenger in the Vega Valley eSport has had a couple of tougher rounds in recent history as we continue to watch Hanko going into Maggots, Beckett's, and Chapel. Such a high-speed S-bend here, and it's always thrilling to watch actually separating first from 6th, and fine margins all throughout the lap there. But now it seems like final qualifying laps are in the books then, and it is Braxok for the first time this season, and the first time in a long time, at least 2 seasons then, that Braxok has gotten on pole. His last pole position was Monza in 2023 for the Brabham Arnage team, of course. So great to see him finally get a pole position for Optimal, and at exactly the right moment for Optimal, because they've got Machete, their big hope in the championship, alongside on the front row, keeping Mark Schluter at bay behind them then. So a very close qualifying session, and Braxok will leave it with the biggest smile on his face.
And the top 13 drivers on the same second. So I'm just going to head off now and do a couple of race direction duties, and I'll come back to chat again in a little while.
Absolutely, David. So while we're looking at it, we can hopefully look through the qualifying grid if we've got a specific results page for qualifying that we can use. But otherwise, I'll just list it off. Janos Braxok will start on pole position. Ruben Machete will start second. And it will be Jeffrey Fournier. No, that's the championship standings. I apologize. There we go. That looks a bit more like it. It is an all Optimal front row. Janos Braxok, 126.381. So a very competitive time there. Ruben Machete nearly matches it, but it is Mark Schluter, championship leader, in third, trying to hold on to that 13-point margin from Machete. Zux will start fourth, completing the second row. Row 3 will be Sander Callas and Patrick Hanko. Jeffrey Fournier will start down in 7th, and it will be Christian Pascal in 8th, Tom Oldermenger 9th in the bright yellow Valley. Then Jesse Latinen completes the top 10. The young Finn getting better and better by the race. In 11th position on the second page, we've got Mirko Mancini with Matt Tucson right behind him as well. Then George Zalagianis in the second of the ground effects. The Greek driver will start 13th with Nandor Marsa 14th. Lucas Viscott lines up 15th, and Andrei Borotovsky, who is subbing in at Ron Squire's team, Squire Nation Esports, he will start 16th, but as you can see, a little bit off the pace. Didn't quite, I think that was a bit of a tricky time. It didn't quite match the time that he did in the pro qualifying as well, which he also, of course, competed and finished in the top 7 in that race. So then, warm-up session to follow now, and this is where we'll see everyone just getting their eye in before the race. Everyone removes the soft tires, puts on the mediums and the hards to prepare for the race start in a few short minutes time then. But yeah, for Janos Braksok, a big opportunity to finally, after how many years of racing has Janos Braksok done in FSR World Championship? I think he's been competing since 2019, if memory serves, which of course was 6 years ago. So, of course, he has won in FSR Winter Series, which is an interesting topical thing to mention because we are not far away in autumn from winter ourselves. So there's certainly a great opportunity for FSR to revive the one of their winter championships, be it IndyCar, NASCAR, or anything else that they have been known to use. But yeah, Janos Braksok, of course, yet to win an actual World Championship Grand Prix. He has come close on a number of occasions, most notably in 2022, the Japanese Grand Prix for Arnage competition. He finished second. As he also matched for HM Engineering in 2021 at the German Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, a race that he also started from pole position. So this will be his, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th pole position, I believe, in his career then, as we see the warm-up session with just a minute to go. Everybody just getting some vital experience in. You never know, could make the difference come the race. And certainly got a lot riding on the championship here as we are closing in on the midpoint here, and Mark Schluter will know from third position he needs to find a way past Ruben Machete. From Janos Braksok's point of view, from a purely personal standpoint, if Ruben Machete and Mark Schluter fight each other, that plays absolutely into his hands at the start in this opening phase of the race. The big threat, of course, will be tyre wear. That has tripped up Janos Braksok before at this particular event. Not least, we all remember the 2023 race where he did 2 stops compared to everybody else's 3. And Dennis Jordan in the Ferrari eSports entry was able to steal victory from him on that occasion. And Braksok, I think, just about finished in the top 10, having done the sort of mistimed stop on the 2-stop strategy compared to the 3-stop that the rest of the field majority, or might even been a 1-stop if memory serves us all. We see one DMV conquest of Viscott getting it very wrong at Copse and going backwards into the wall. We saw a fair bit of that in the pro race earlier on, which of course was won by Istvan Singel. So Viscott will be hoping out to, I think, finish this final flying lap. So then, warm up about to extinguish, and then the British Grand Prix at Silverstone will begin. 52 laps of racing action. We suspect the favoured tyre is really going to be the mediums from all the front runners, but don't be surprised to see 1 or 2 gamble on the hards. You might even see the soft tyre in use at some point today. Shall we have a brief recap of the championship standings, just in case anybody has forgotten in the short time there. But yeah, you can see track temperature 34 degrees at Silverstone in Northamptonshire. Mark Schluter, there you go, 81 points, 13 ahead of Ruben Machete. 2 wins apiece. Nobody else has experienced that winning feeling so far this season. Could Janos Braksok spoil the party? It's the man who's been there and done everything except for winning a World Championship Grand Prix, which he's keen to put right today. Jeffrey Fournier in third, but we'll start a bit further down the grid, just inside the top 10. Sander Callas, another driver as well, looking for the first podium of the season. He's had, I think, 3 4th places in a row, hasn't he? To the Estonians' frustration. Tom Aldermenga 5th on 46 points. Then it's Patrick Hanko 6th, 3 points behind him. Hanko, of course, up and down season, but he did get that best ever result last time out at the Red Bull Ring. Zoltzik is 7th, and it's George Zalagianis consistently in the points in 8th. Janos Braksok, of course, joined late in the season, but has been consistently, I think he is actually the one finishing in 5th the last 2 races then it will be a single, of course, rounding out the top 10. And of course, one thing to keep in mind, we do have the Rookie Cup that I believe Ruben Machete and Patrick Hanko are both leading in, having both started this season, having done 8 races or less in the championship. So then, we are about to transition to the grid in a few short moments' time. It'll be interesting to see who everybody's money is on. Will it be Janos Braksok? Will it be Ruben Machete or Mark Schluter? Don't forget Zoltzuks in 4th as well. Could definitely be a factor today as well. And we do apologize, by the way. A couple of people have mentioned that the lag has been considerable. We are doing our very, very best to rectify that as quickly as possible so that we can at least get something half decent on stream, which I think so far we have done a decent job of doing so. But until then, I will do my best to describe everything that's happening. And don't forget, of course, we have got Ron Squire dutifully doing the highlights about a week and a half on average after these races. So that will be there for those who aren't able to see the race live. Just a quick shout out to some of our sponsors then, including, of course, Ron Squire's own driver, the SimRacers Performance Guide, of course, which you do see the logo for on the top right there. A fantastic resource that David and his team have put together for the aspiring sim racer to try and improve their lap times and get feedback. There's our other sponsor, Grid Finder, of course, the community that we're part of. In fact, David Aghayan, our broadcast director, came to us specifically through a Grid Finder. So that is something we've definitely got to thank them for. Otherwise, we would not have a broadcast today. So for the World Championship. And of course, we've got a shout out to the FSR community that has supported us for so long this season, and that we are all immensely grateful for. I think David is just trying to signal to me that he wants me to read out the grid there. So I will do the best I can to cover that. But yeah, the tension definitely building now as I think we've transitioned to the race session. So here's our starting grid. It is not Samuel Itidona on pole position. Don't worry about that. I think that's the warm-up results from the Pro Championship. So it should be Janos Braksok that starts on pole position on the front row, with Ruben Machete in the second optimal, joining his teammate on that front row. Mark Schluter heads up the second row with Zoltzuks alongside him. Then it will be Sander Callis on row 3 with Patrick Hanko alongside him. Alongside Marsa completing row 7. Then finally on row 8 will be Lucas Viscott and Andrei Boratovsky, making only his second start in the championship, but his first for Ron Squire Nation eSports. So Ron Squire will definitely be cheering his man on. But the big question will, of course, be who is going to get the best start and what tyres everybody's going to choose to start on as well. It could indeed be a legitimate tactic for a lot of the field to start on the hards and try and extend this first stint as long as they can before switching to the mediums a bit later on. And then depending
I'm back with you, by the way.
Hello. So David O'Reilly rejoins us now from race direction, David. So obviously big emphasis on nailing the start here, and we have got Braksok on his 5th career pole position, his 2nd ever at Silverstone, and knowing he's got his teammate behind him will be a big advantage. But Mark Schluter, who just missed out on the front row by a narrow margin with that late lap by Machete, Mark Schluter we expect to be quite strong today and looking to fight back in the championship after a tough end to the race at the Red Bull Ring last time out some weeks ago. So we could be in for quite an exciting start.
Yeah, well, the live timing is showing the front row on mediums and then the next 3 people on hards. But as we know, it can sometimes take a little while to update that. But puts a completely different complexion on your first couple of laps. If you're on the mediums and there's hard runners behind you, you've got to absolutely go for it and work those mediums. Whereas the hard runners can be that tiny bit more patient and wait for the pendulum to swing their way as the medium tyres go off. So Silverstone is hard on rubber, as we touched on earlier. So it's going to make a big difference to these guys. They've had their tyre shredding qualifying laps, where the softs only got to last them for 2 laps. Now they've got to measure out the life of the tyre, particularly in the opening stint with full tanks of fuel. So here's where the hot lappers and the Grand Prix drivers get separated into 2 different groups, huh?
Exactly. So this is really what's going to sort, as they say, the men from the boys, but I think it's applicable to all genders, those who take part in sim racing, of course, especially over a full Grand Prix distance. It is going to truly test your tyre saving, your fuel saving, as we found out for Mark Schluter last time out, and indeed your physical endurance, your wheel-to-wheel prowess is going to get a nice workout then. Boratowski and Viscott complete the back row of the grid, and we are moments away from the start of the British Grand Prix. Round 5 in the 2025 Formula Sim Racing World Championship is about to get underway here at Silverstone. Any minute now, they will roar into life, and we will get underway. Engine's building now. I think the lights are on, and when they go out, round 5 will begin with Braxock on your right-hand side, Ruben Machete on the left. Away they go, and it is a brilliant start from Braxock. But look at Zux and Hanko and Fournier all squabbling over 4th position in the background there as they all rush into Village. Schluter looking to the outside of Ruben Machete, but he's going to be shown the door then as they go into Adrian. Now, oh, look at that. So Zux has a little dive, and that leaves him exposed to Patrick Hanko as they go down the Wellington Straight for the first time. Braxock leading Machete, leading Schluter, leading Zux. So our top 4 unchanged, but it is Hanko that is going up the inside of Zux for 4th position, immediately disproving what I just said there. As you can see, Sander Callas has had a tough start. He's fallen behind Fournier and Zux and Hanko there. So Grand Effect Sim Racing with a lot of work to do. But up front, everybody in the top 3 staying in formation. But this is very good news for Go Team, because they've got their drivers 3rd and 4th in a position to challenge Optimal in 1st and 2nd. But look at Braxock. He has decided to take the hare approach, whereas Machete is the tortoise of the 2 of them. Braxock is sprinting away at the end of this opening lap as they go down the Hangar Straight.
Yeah, well, Hanko made a blistering start, and a little bit like we're touching on earlier, he's a medium runner, and I think he's taken a couple of the hard tyre runners already and really decided to go for it. And magnificent start, and that's pushed him right up into the top 4.
Indeed it has. So Zux and Callas both on the hard tyres, we believe, along with Zalagianis and Matt Tucson. So all the Grand Effect cars and Zolt Zux going for the hard tyres. Everybody else favouring the mediums then, as Machete is very much continuing to be under attack from his championship rival Mark Schluter. You can see that going on just behind Braxock. So this is really ideal, exactly what Janos Braxock would have been hoping for. If he can build a bit of a buffer in his opening phase and then start managing the mediums, he can get the tyre life that he needs to make sure he doesn't have to visit the pits more times than absolutely necessary, and that he can keep lapping competitively, that he's not going to be too vulnerable to an undercut or indeed an overcut at any phase of this race. Silverstone, a pretty solid track for the undercut. The only problem is that the pit lane, it is quite a lengthy pit lane entry with much slower pit limit due to the fact that it cuts a fair portion of the track as well. So you do lose a little bit more time pitting here compared to the typical track with that lower pit lane speed of about 60 kilometers per hour, if I'm not mistaken. As we look here at Jeffrey Fournier on the mediums in the background there, you can see trying to get past Zolt Zux' teammate there. So Optiminals are definitely trying to control this race by squeezing. There's a sort of pincer movement either side of the 2 Go teams of Schluter and Hanko. So what could indeed be happening here is that Zux runs longer in this first stint, whereas Braxock and Machete can be a bit more aggressive and pit first on the mediums, and Optimal don't have to worry too much about Go Team stealing track position from them potentially, unless Schluter and Hanko can get the mediums to last a bit longer.
Yeah, well, I was watching Jeffrey Fournier, and in my view, he's probably slightly out of position insofar as he's a high-quality driver on mediums, but he's got somebody in front of him on hards. But of course, it had escaped my attention that the guy in front of him is Zoltan Sukh, is actually his teammate anyway. So, but if they were going to cover themselves off with two different strategies, they're sort of in the wrong order.
Indeed, yes. As we now look at, we just saw Brutha there, Oldenmenger has been catching the back of Callas on the hards. So those who started on the hards are feeling the pain now, but the longer we get into this stint, the mediums will eventually start to fade. Not as quickly as the softs, of course, depending on how you drive them, of course, but you definitely will have to nurse these mediums to get them to match the tire life of the hards then. As we've nearly completed lap 3, and you can definitely sense our top 4, possibly even our top 6, settling in a little bit here for the long haul and trying to, especially Hanko, Schluter, Machete, Braxock, all trying to get the distance with the mediums. There is a little bit of a DRS train forming because Braxock has only now just broken out of DRS range of Machete, just over 7/10 ahead then. But yeah, Machete could find himself, if Braxock keeps pulling away, a little bit exposed to any attack from Mark Schluter, his championship rival. So I wonder how Optimum will play. Will they try and slow Braxock up a little bit to help Ruben Machete out, given that they've got high stakes in that championship? Ruben Machete needs to keep gaining on Mark Schluter at this phase of the season, with the gap being 13 points. And let's remind ourselves, if it ended this way, that would be another 3 points gained, so the gap would be just 10 points in the championship if Ruben Machete is able to finish in second with Schluter third.
Yeah, it's definitely a time in the race where the hard tyre runners are taking their medicine and just hanging in there. And Zoltan Sukh is probably the one who is obviously the one who's doing the best, because he's the first of the hard tyre runners and he's in 5th place. But somewhere around the next 6 or 8 laps, the pendulum will swing the other way, and those lovely gooey soft tyres will just start to wear and overheat. And the hard tyres, of course, they're on a deg curve as well, but they're on a much shallower deg curve. So as fuel bleeds off, the car actually gets quicker, whereas the soft tyre runner, as the fuel bleeds off, the tyre deg exceeds the fuel effect, so they will start to go slower, and you have this enticing moment where the pendulum swings and the hard tyre runners start to feel pretty good. Now, if you're on the medium, Silverstone is a lot of corners in Silverstone are flat or near flat, even on full fuel, but that's where you absolutely punish the tyres, particularly the front left. For example, turn 1 and 2 are flat, but if you can avoid some tyre scrub there and look after your front left, it's very, very helpful. And of course, the famous Copse corner, which is just about flat out on full fuel, absolutely punishes the front left. So if you can be a little bit patient, rotate the car and unwind some steering before you absolutely plant the throttle 100%, the left front will start to thank you, because as you arrive then at Beckett's complex, by the time you make your final right-hander at Beckett's and into Chapel, the front left is absolutely burning, and that whole sequence starts at Copse. So a little bit of tyre management in Copse just lets that front left survive to play all the way through Beckett's without just giving up too much degradation.
Yeah, and we're riding aboard there much through Copse corner itself. You saw he wasn't running all the way out to the curb on the left-hand side. He was actually leaving a bit of margin, and maybe that sort of counteracts some of the dirty air from the back of Machete. Of course, his championship rival will be hoping that Mark should just chews through his tyres, getting too close to him. So I think that was what Mark should was thinking, because he was starting to lap slightly quicker than him. In fact, set personal best lap of the race last time around, a purple middle sector on that lap as well. As we complete another lap, lap 6 begins, and Braxock is now 9/10 ahead, as we see this is Christian Pascal then trying to get on terms with Latinen. I think Latinen gained a place to get into 9th position at the start here, and they are all lapping in the sort of 32s, so we expect there's going to be a bit of a train formed behind Zoltan Sukh, who is sort of also in the low 32s as well, whereas our 4 leaders are starting to sprint away to the tune of 2 seconds there. So that's going to be crucial later on for seeing where the gaps emerge and where you'd want to pit into. because our top 4 will be hoping the gap to those behind just gets bigger and bigger, as big as it possibly can, so that they've got plenty of clear air and they don't have to fight people on pit exit. And that way they can get a decent undercut with a solid outlap that can allow them to maybe gain or indeed defend position then, as we cut back to Fournier, who even on the mediums has not quite been able to, he's been sort of just matching the times of Zux and playing it quite conservatively here in the 4th of our Optiminals in this race then. So as I said, Optiminal were a lot of fires in the iron that they can use to their advantage potentially at a later phase in this race. As we look at Hanko now, who is very much backing up his teammate. He was trying to do this at a Red Bull Ring last month as well, wasn't he, Patrick Hanko? Where he was essentially playing rear gunner to defend from Mark Schiller, and then Schiller ran out of fuel halfway through the final lap, which promoted Hanko to that best ever P2. He's finished twice on the podium, once at Imola last year, where he was still competing for the Pro Championship at the time. And he got the overall podium, filling in a substitute drive for Go Team in the World Championship. And now he is a fully fledged Go Team driver in his first full season, and he is really starting to get comfortable. Also, a small shout out to him for helping broadcast the pro race earlier on as well, which of course was a massive assistance to us as we cut to Mancini, who is closing on the back of George Zalagianis. And Zalagianis, again, another of those trying to get the hard tires to last, and he's trying to keep Mancini behind in that yellow, black, and red Vega Valley eSports. Mancini goes a little bit wide through Cops, and that's exactly what I think Schluter was trying to avoid, getting sort of wedged onto the curb by pushing a little bit hard. That can just put you a little bit unstable. We saw with Viscott in the warm-up that it's so easy to crash out there. And on the exit,
Mancini almost crossed that line where you're required to show a passport on your way back into the circuit there.
Yeah, it did used to be an old airfield, of course, especially during World War II, RAF Silverstone. So technically it's not quite an airport, but you're right. This is a place where people would land and go in and out of the country once upon a time. But now, of course, it sees more ground-based combat rather than aerial combat. And certainly, Janos Braxok has been doing everything right so far. It's really the first set of stops that are going to be absolutely crucial in seeing how this is going to pan out. Who can get the mediums to last the longest, and who is going to go for the 2-stop and who's going to go for the 3, I think. I don't quite see anybody. You could see maybe some of the hard tire runners gambling on the 1-stop, but I think given how high tire work was, especially in the pro race, I suspect minimum of 2 is what we're going to see across the board from our 16-car field.
Yeah, well, Silverstone traditionally is hard on tyres. I wasn't aware the pit lane speed limit was quite that low. It's a long pit lane, but the deceptive part about it is you miss about 4 or 5 corners. You miss Vale and Club and Abbey, and you can go quite quick all the way up to the speed limit. By the way, Mancini is getting pretty close to Zalagianis now, and unless it's my imagination. Then I was putting myself into the head of somebody who's on medium tyres trying to chase down somebody who's on hards. And it's a different kind of pressure, isn't it? Because you're sort of saying to yourself, this guy in front of me is on hards. This is as slow as he's going to be all afternoon. I'm on mediums. I need to get past this guy or he's already beaten me. And if I was Mirko Mancini, that's what I'd be thinking.
Yeah, and as you say that, Christian Pascal has dropped out of the race on lap 9, or just at the end of lap 8, I should say. He was fighting, as you say, just outside the top 10, and his race has come to a premature end. So I'd love to see a replay of what happened, but I believe Pascal has binned it potentially on the exit of Stowe Corner there, just before the pit lane, I think. So a little bit too far over the curb. Very easy mistake to make, and the man who won the pro race at Istanbul Park last season has very much come to grief. Let's see what happened. No, actually, I think he may have just been disconnected there, David.
I've gone back on my server replay here, and to me it looks like throttle oversteer on the exit of Stowe.
Right.
And nose into the wall. Something that's a lot easier to do than you might think. yeah, I do not think it was a disconnect because the engine was smoking. So yeah, throttle oversteer, exit a stow, and easy mistake to make under pressure.
Well, there we go. One Go team is out of the race, but still Schluter and Hanko are very much trying to keep Ruben Machete in touch. And then they've got Janos Braxok, who is 1.3 seconds in the lead, starting to extend that gap now. So he is sort of leaving Ruben Machete to fend for himself. You see Mancini is trying to go around the outside into Club and Vale on Zalagianis, but thinks better of it. And you can tell Mancini here on the mediums. As he said, this is where knowing that advantage will go away from him. He's sort of feeling that pressure to make the move sooner rather than later, because Zalagianis is going to be very, very keen now to consolidate that position in the top 10. He's got a big gap to Lattinen ahead, 4.6 seconds, but he could well close that in if those on the mediums start to really fade at the end of this stint then. But we shouldn't really see any of these medium runners coming in for another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 laps or so at the very, very least. You wouldn't expect too many ridiculously early stops then, as we cut back to our second place fight then. And this is really where Ruben Machete has got to sustain the pressure here if he wants to really keep the pressure on Mark Schluter in this championship fight. But of course, Schluter, he has shown a very, very handy turn of speed across the season, winning the opening 2 rounds, got on pole at Sepang for round 2 as well. And he, of course, has got Patrick Hanko backing him up, whereas Braxok is not really going to be doing too much to help Ruben Machete at this early phase. And in fact, in comes Ruben Machete, exactly opposite to what I just said. We are seeing just at the start of lap 11, 2 cars coming in. Oh, and Ruben Machete comes to a stop on the pit entry. That is bizarre. Some sort of issue there, and horrendous bad luck hitting the man who won the last 2 races. So Ruben Machete, the German, is out of the British Grand Prix before we even reach a quarter distance of the race.
Oh, awful luck. Awful luck for anybody, and particularly for somebody fighting for the championship and potentially fighting for the win this afternoon. Just a real shame. Mirko Mancini pitting for tyres as well. So he's come in after 11 laps. So that is at least a 2-stopper.
And I wonder if Patrick Hanko was pitting and did not expect Ruben Machete to come in ahead of him there. I mean, Machete seemed to have some sort of, I would venture a hard rotary from the way he turned off and came to a stop there, as we see that looks like Nando Massa filling in for Giuseppe Saracino, pulling over to let Hanko through into 10th position. So Hanko's gone for the hard tyres here, and this is going to be a big undercut that he's trying to go for, not just on his teammate Mark Schluter, but potentially to try and get ahead of Braxok as well. So what are Optimal going to do now? Now they've only got 1 car at the very front of the field. Are they going to potentially pit Braxok in response to cover off? Or are they going to worry more about Schluter and think that Hanko is pit ridiculously early, as I had sort of previously assumed, and that they don't need to cover him off just yet, because by the time they pit, Hanko will be on very worn tyres. In comes Schluter. So there we go. Go Team are converging on that same strategy then.
I just rode on board with Meshti to see what had happened in his final moments, and it did look like he was in control of the car as he pulled it off and slowed down. So I can only imagine a real-world emergency has occurred in his living room or wherever he's racing. And
fact, we just got a comment, by the way, David, saying from Ruben Machete in the YouTube chat saying, "I am just too sick, cannot do this." And I think that's absolutely fair. Even with a championship up for grabs, Ruben Machete prioritizing his health and well-being rather than result in this race is probably the sensible move, given we're still early doors. There's still a long way to go in this race, and it is quite demanding, especially this circuit. So I apologize for putting Silverstone at this point in the calendar, not knowing that Ruben Machete would be ill at this point. But yeah, I think you and him have got that sort of in common today, haven't you, David?
Yeah, yep. Really, really sorry that that's happened to you, Ruben. You're a great driver, and we'll look forward to you fighting out for more wins and hopefully the championship later in the season. And yeah, it's a shame you had to do that, but 90 minutes of sim racing, if you haven't done it, is a lot harder than you might imagine. You end up coming out in a lather of sweat. And it reminded me of a moment when I was racing in Codemasters F1 2010. When it first came out, my teammate suddenly went off the track at the hairpin at Montreal. And I said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "I just got attacked by a kitten."
There we go. But look at this. Hanko, he's no kitten, immediately picks off Matt Toussaint, and he's got to do it because Braxok is in the pits right now. Lattinen is joining him as well, as we see, a little bit of a moment there for Matt Toussaint trying to catch up with the back of Schluter and Hanko there. I think that's actually let Schluter through. Where's Braxok re-emerge in 6th position on the medium tire, so he is ahead of Patrick Hanko there. That is absolutely crucial. Optimal still with a brilliant chance to win this race. But the interesting thing here is that Hanko, having undercut Schluter, is now in a position where he's half a second ahead of him. Is he going to let him back through, or are they going to race what is essentially 2nd position? Now that Machete is out of the way, essentially Patrick Hanko might think, well, there's another race win up for grabs here. I'm not going to do any favors for my teammate now. His main championship rival is basically out of the picture.
Yeah, and Fournier, the Zoltan Zuk's Jeffrey Fournier team are still working together, and obviously have inherited the lead with the other drivers' pit stops. But what do you think a pit stop is in Silverstone? Is it about 20 seconds, 22 seconds, or something like that?
It's about that. Yeah, it's just over 20, if I'm not mistaken. 20, 21.
Yeah, so, well, because that's weird, because that puts Zoltan Zuk's, well down the order. Anyway, we'll see how that pans out. But now they've just changed. Oh no, they were just swapping and
that's
changing.
That's Braxok picking off Zalagianis there into Stowe. So Zalagianis on the old hards has got no response. Fournier has decided to come in off the medium, so he cannot get them any further. And it'd be interesting to see how far behind Hanko. Schluter has been let through by Patrick Hanko that previous lap, by the way. So crucial for Go Team, and Mark Schluter is now 1.5 seconds behind Zalagianis. So he's over 2 seconds now behind Braxok, our net race leader. There is Fournier. He's going to come up right behind Matt Toussaint and just ahead, crucially, of Nandor Marsa there, who's yet to pit off the mediums there. So Marsa shouldn't be too much of a hindrance then. So Fournier now has got to, this is going to be an interesting hard tire stint, because Schluter, Hanko and Fournier have all gone for the hards, whereas Braxok has gone for another set of mediums. So I would suggest Braxok is saving the hards for the final stint, whereas we are definitely going to see Schluter and company going a bit longer in this particular stint. But Braxok says another purple first sector. He is absolutely flying out there, trying to build a big gap to Mark Schluter.
He's going to have a long, hard tyre stint, isn't he? Because if he's come in with 13 laps for fresh mediums, 13 and 13, 26, let's say 28 with the benefit of slightly less fuel on board, lap 28 to lap 52, 38, 48. Yeah, that's fairly long, hard stint, 24 laps. So interesting.
Here we go. So Schluter is cleared. So Zalagianis round the outside into club goes Patrick Hanko as well. So Zalagianis again powerless to hold our race leaders at bay. Oldermenger now pits from what was 3rd position off of his medium tires. We know Tom Oldermenger, not only is he pretty decent around this track as we've seen in previous seasons, but he is very, very good at tire preservation as well. So that is one of his strengths then, as he re-emerges in 9th position on the hard tires, just behind Jeffrey Fournier there, and ahead of Jase Lattinen. Nandor Marsa and Andrzej Bortowski have also come in for Go Team and Squire Nation eSports respectively. Braxok sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 30.8. That is about 7/10 quicker than Mark Schluter on that previous lap alone. So Braxok is definitely, as you say, taking an aggressive strategy, trying to build a big lead on the mediums and then extend. Going to have to do a very, very monster stint on the hards, you would think, at some point or other, unless he is going to go very aggressive. He's now see Fournier catching Matt Toussaint just into cops, which is not ideal for him, because that is almost like the wrong moment right on the apex of cops, where you can't really position yourself to the inside in time. And now Fournier knows he's got to clear both of these ground effects quickly to keep the pressure on Go Team at this phase. Having pit a bit later though, as we see DRS wide open up the inside into Stowe.
He's made short work of that, hasn't he? That was a very clean pass on Tucson.
Yeah, Tucson I think decided to run his own race, having started on the hards. There's no sense really getting caught up in that. He's really sort of fighting against his teammates Zalagianis and Oldenmenger, essentially, I think, is probably where his battle lies. Oh, sorry, pardon me. I had to sneeze there. Should probably have thought to mute myself there. But nonetheless, we carry on, and Mark Schluter now, interestingly, sets a purple middle sector, a tenth quicker than Braxock. So is Braxock, has his charge already started to halt, because Schluter was only 0.2 slower the previous lap. The gap 3.5 seconds. But if Schluter can start getting on terms with it soon, can start matching his lap times, it puts Braxock in a bit of an awkward position where he's not going to build a big enough lead to sort of prevent potentially being overcut if he doesn't have a great stint on the hards, or great, depending if he pits into traffic as well. But yeah, at the moment, Braxock has just got to hope that there's a little bit more life in these mediums that he can use. He's also not really catching Callas and Zux, I think, quite as quickly as he would have hoped. Well, he was a second lap quicker than Callas the previous lap then. So you would think on those old hards, Zux and Callas are definitely running a very, very long first stint here. And we shouldn't be seeing them in until at least lap 20 or 25, somewhere in that region. As Oldenmenger now diving up the inside of Tucson, and the Englishman in his home event has got very little response there as he gets a little bit twitchy on the exit of Stowe. Next target to defend from will be Jase Latinen, who also pit 3 laps ago. And Latinen, I think he is going to be very, very keen to fight against Tom Oldenmenger here and clear Matt Tucson as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Schluter and Braxock, the gap seems to be pretty stable at about 4 seconds. So Braxock so far making those mediums work for him.
Yep, he has, as you say, extended another half second. So charge, he's still in the high 130s, but here comes Latinen, and Tucson sticks to the outside on the entry into Brooklands and Luffield. And again, Matt Tucson very much either not able to or deciding against putting up a massive fight against Latinen at this phase then. As we cut back to the current race leaders, it looks like Sander Callas a little bit quicker actually, by about 0.6 compared to Zolt Zux that previous lap. So Zux, I think, has taken a lot of life out of these hards and is starting to fall into the clutches of the Estonian behind him. Of course, Callas and Zux, as I've mentioned a couple of times this season, former teammates at Ground Effect. And of course, Callas has stayed at that team. Zux has shopped around to a couple of different teams, currently berthed with the Optiminal squad, and got his first podium earlier this season at Sepang, and has certainly had some big standout moments here. If he can be the leader on this particular strategy, like I said, I think they're probably going to do a 2-stop, these two, where they go on 2 medium stints near the end rather than trying to 1-stop it, because I think that might just leave them as basically sitting ducks, unless they've got amazing tyre life compared to the likes of Braxock, Schluter and Hanko. Their fight really is going to be against Hanko, essentially, at the rear of this train, rather than our race leader who's built up that big gap. I think Braxock will be, if he catches up to them before too long, he should be able to pick Callas and Zux off one by one in quick succession, unless they pit ahead of him, which is roughly what I expect to happen, essentially.
Yeah, well, Zoltan Zux ran a pretty interesting tyre strategy back in Bahrain, if I recall correctly. He jumped off his second set of tyres quite quickly and had me scratching my head, but in the end it worked out really well, because he was blisteringly quick for that particular stint, and when it all washed out at the end, he'd moved up a couple of spots. So I think he does put his mind to tyre strategy. The other thing about running the hards is, unlike the mediums, which tend to fall away in a great hurry, the hards just drop off a tiny bit at a time, and it's not as obvious to you that that the performance is going away, unless you're watching your delta and watching the gaps to other drivers.
Indeed it is. So often it is a the conservative choice is to start on the harder tyre to try and keep in the race, even if those ahead are going to sprint away on the mediums. You see Callas having a little twitch on the exit of Aintree now as he gets onto the Wellington Straight and prepares himself for Brooklands there. But you can tell Callas is trying to size up a move on Zux. He sort of knows that Braxock is catching both of them at a rate of knots on his fresher mediums, so Callas will be a little bit under pressure here, and he's been so far kind of the nearly man, always just a little bit outside the podium positions, isn't he? Callas, despite having some good qualifying, some good opening stints in races, it's usually he needs a few things to fall his way, and often they just don't quite fall into his lap, or he gets into a little bit of trouble midway through a race. And we saw it a couple of times in the Pro Championship last season. He won brilliantly the season opener at Bahrain, but the rest of the season, he was very much the fourth man in a freeway title fight, essentially.
Now, there's been a couple of passes that have occurred, which I've just gone back and checked on. Well, one of them just happened a moment ago was Tom Oldenmenger swung by George Zeligianis before Maggots Beckett's. But Jeffrey Fournier actually did a very nice pass entry to Stowe. What's that straight called? Hanger Straight, I think. So we've had a couple of guys fly by George Zeligonis and Jeffrey Fournier putting some good work in at the moment. I think he's on hards. Yeah, he is on hards.
That's correct. Then, as we see, Zux is going to come out just behind Fournier, so he is pit from the lead. So looks like Callas will not get the opportunity to pass him on track just yet, but he may well pit and come out behind him, especially if Braxock can pass him. So this is crucial for Callas's race, whether he pits at the end of this lap or stays out. It's also crucial for Braxock, could end up holding him up just a little bit, which could play ever so slightly into the hands of Mark Schluter, who's dropped in nearly 5 seconds behind the Hungarian, who is still in that net race lead at the present moment, as we see, a little bit of weaving across the track there from Sander Callas there, and that definitely has at least spooked Janos Braxock, if not prevented him from passing him there into Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel. Now Braxock is once again going to get the DRS, or no, he just misses out. I think, no, he is here. He is within that 7/10 margin, so he will close into Stowe corner. Does Callas dive into the pits? Indeed he does. There we go. It's much the relief of Janos Braxock, who now can reassume the lead as he starts lap 21 of 52. So we are closing in on half distance then. That will be lap 26, of course. But Callas will need a solid exit here, a decent outlap as well, to make sure he doesn't fall too far off the back of Zolt Zux now, who is about 3 seconds over lead behind Zalagianis, who's coming in now off of his hard tyres. So we are now starting to see a lot of the hard tyre runners bail out after 21 laps and go for their first of their 2 stops that they're going to be making.
So massive undercut between the two teammates. Jeffrey Fournier, who you will recall was a couple of seconds, 2 to 3 seconds behind Zoltan Zux. Fournier pitted much earlier off his mediums, maybe about lap 13. And when Zoltan Zux pitted just a lap ago, Fournier is now 2.5 seconds in front of him. So that was about a 7.5 second undercut over that period of time between the two drivers pitting. So Zoltan Zux, my info here tells me that he's come back out on hards again. So it looks like Zoltan Zux is planning on being very, very quick in the final stint of the race, and he's taking his medicine now with long stints on hards.
Well, as Mary Poppins once said, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Maybe two helpings of hard tyres will help the softs or the mediums go down later on, depending on what he opts for. As you see Callas setting the fastest middle sector of the race with DRS behind Zux then. So Zux needs to clear Oldenmenger in a hurry. By the way, Braxock on the previous lap lost 7/10 to Mark Schluter, but he is now matching those lap times. So that is how much he lost behind the ground effect of Sander Callas there on those old hard tyres then. So let's see if that ends up being crucial or not, but Janos Braxock still has got the clear air. We'll hope to press on as we see Tucson is closing on Andrei Borotovsky. Late move up the inside into Stowe. Borotovsky breaks very, very late round the outside to try and hold on to that position. And that's very, very bold there from the driver from the Czech Republic, just holding on. He's from the Czech Republic, Borotovsky, if I'm not mistaken. But there we go.
Very brave defending.
Slovakia, sorry, not Czech Republic. But now you see Oldenmenga backing Zux into Callas here. This is looking very, very tasty, David.
Oh, indeed, indeed. Three of them in very close proximity.
Oh, and looking up the inside goes Zux into Kops. That's bold, and that's forced Oldenmenga wide, and around the outside goes Callas, who's contemplating a 2 moves in 1. That is incredibly brave. Oh my goodness me.
What did we just see?
I think that might be the move of the season so far. Incredible opportunism from Callas on the mediums. He had so much grip, so much confidence, and that all started because Zux went for a very risky move up the inside at Kops, slowed both himself and Oldenmenga down. The door was open around the outside, and Callas threaded the needle there, and that is what years of experience from a man who has won the Pro Championship many moons ago and has finished on the podium and taken pole positions here in the World Championship. That is the sort of quality of driver that Sander Callas is. Unsurprisingly, fastest final sector at the race for Callas then, as here comes Tucson for take 2 on Borotovsky. Borotovsky is surely not going to make it easy again, but this time Tucson is further ahead when they get to the braking zone, and the yellow ground effect is through into 12th position.
Well, what an amazing couple of laps of racing. I think Sander Callas has got that massive smile under his helmet at the moment of a bloke who just go for some old hard tyres and got some spanking new medium tyres, and then saw 2 guys in front of him get delayed on hards and said, yeah, I'll have a piece of this action on my brand new mediums. Thank you very much. He's probably still pinching himself that he managed to do that in a couple of corners.
And that's created somewhat of a virtuous circle for him, because now he's got just under 2 seconds to clear out to Geoffrey Fournier. He's the fastest man on track, if I'm not mistaken. I think Zalagian is slapping actually similar lap times on the hard, but I think there might be a bit of DRS play that's helping him there. Although he's about 11 seconds behind Mancini. So yeah, I think Callas, again, purple middle sector for him. He's just really come alive on these mediums, while those that pit a bit earlier for the hards are sort of starting to feel a little bit of the pain of that. Fournier, of course, did stay out a little bit later to lap 13, so he's only got 9 lap old hard tyres. But yeah, he is very much been closed in almost immediately. Look at Callas there as he completes lap 24, 1 minute 30.4. That is the fastest lap of the race by some margin then. And he was about 1.6 seconds quicker than Geoffrey Fournier. He has gone off like a scolded kitten here in this race as Sander Callas, and already he is sizing up a move for 4th position. Here we go.
DRS will open, no doubt.
Not down here, but he's already got the move into Brooklands there, and Geoffrey Fournier almost sees the purple and red ground effect just emerge out of nowhere on the left-hand side, and Fournier has to concede that 4th position. And Sander Callas now 9.9 seconds to Patrick Hanko, who's fallen about 2 seconds behind Schluter, and Schluter is about 4.2 behind Braxock, starting to match the times of the man on the mediums in that optimal, leading the race at the moment. Only a tenth slower the previous lap was Mark Schluter then. But yeah, Callas in the pit window of all the leaders now. That presents an interesting conundrum here to this podium fight here. If I were Patrick Hanko, seeing the pace of Callas, I might feel a little bit worried here about even that 9-second buffer. If Callas, seeing how quickly he closed the 2-second gap to Fournier, I think Callas is going to be a major headache for our leaders.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, Callas has decided that this is his time to shine. He's bolted on the medium tyre and absolutely giving it everything. And it is working really, really well for him. And that's the nice thing. When everybody else is on the hard and you're on fresh mediums, you can absolutely scream by people. And he's doing this in such a manner that I've not really seen in a World Championship race before. So absolutely using these mediums to their ultimate potential. And what's going to be interesting is to see how long he can use them for, and when he's got to go to hard. So I'm going to just do my homework now and check when he actually did his pit stop.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Callis is I remember the 2022 race here a couple of years ago. Callis started in the front row, took the lead in the first stint from, I think it was Noah Rovers and Colin Spork, who eventually won the race and, of course, the championship. And Callis had a crazy fight with, I believe it was Rovers and a couple others for that final position on the podium. In the end, I think there was a little bit of contact and he got penalised post-race, but that was a very, very strong performance by him. And yeah, one of the first times that he had led for Ground Effect Sim Racing. So this is a pretty decent hunting ground. As in comes Janos Braksok after another 12-lap stint on the medium tyres. So you do sense Janos Braksok is now in a position where we're at half distance. Can he go to the end on the hards? That is a big, big ask for the Hungarian.
Yeah, doable, but a long stint. Whereas Sander Callis, I think Sander Callis can do a second medium stint and make that work for him if he can keep this pace going. And he only put these tyres are only 5 laps old.
Look at this, Braksok has gone for yet another set of mediums then. So his third medium stint of the race as he gets out just behind his teammate Fournier and Zux, both on the hards, although Zux's pit a lot more recently is sizing up Fournier just in front of him then. So this is a difficult situation for Optiminal because they don't really want Janos Braksok to be held up here because he's clearly on a free stop strategy, I would say.
Yeah, which is surprising, but yeah, no doubt they've done the maths and these guys are quick and they know what they're doing. But I'm finding it just really intriguing at the moment to see what Sander Callis is doing. He's quickest man on track.
Problem is, if Braksok is getting caught in traffic, it hands things into the lap of Go Team right now.
Well, exactly. That's always the risk of doing an extra pit stop. Mathematically, it might show that you can do it with the pace, but you've got to rely on no traffic.
There we go, and Zux does overwhelm Jeffrey Fournier into Stowe corner, and now Braksok will be getting impatient now for Fournier, who's got the oldest tyres of the three in this battle, to essentially not hold him up too much. Look how close he's getting out of Vale into Club. And is he going to try and make a move side by side into Abbey, the first corner? There we go. I think Jeffrey Fournier very much decided not to hold him up there into the first corner of the race, of the circuit, sorry. And that is very much a wise and prudent move from the Frenchman, Jeffrey Fournier, who's not been around FSR for too many of the last couple of years, but he's been around sim racing a long, long time in other categories. GPVWC also comes to mind, where he's been very, very experienced there, where he competes, of course, for Epic Racing. So he's not just on the books of Optiminal, but a very, very long-serving and popular driver, Jeffrey Fournier, with a big fan base behind him. But now Braksok has set his sights on Zux here. So crucially, it doesn't look like Braksok has lost too much time at all. It's just a little bit earlier behind Callis, and now Fournier pretty much letting through the first possible opportunity. So he will be on the blower, asking for Zolt Zux to do the same here, and he's not far behind Callis either at this point. So it could be a round 2, Braksok versus Callis.
Well, Callis is doing about half a second quicker than both cars in front of him if you average the previous 5 laps. So,
and there we go. Swap being made. Zux just lifted off comfortably before the braking zone into at the end, hanging straight into Stowe. So Janos Braksok is quickly up to 4th, and I guess that is the advantage of having 3 other Optiminal cars, 3 Optiminal cars in the race, rather than just the usual 2 as you would have in previous seasons. As now we see Tucson also closing on the back of Massa and Mancini, and Nando Massa is going to be very much at the mercy of Matt Tucson on the fresher medium tyres. He comes through up the inside into Stowe, nails the braking point, and that was a very textbook move from Matt Tucson, who now sets his sights on Mirko Mancini, who is also just pit onto the hard tyre a lap ago.
Yes, and Nando Massa just had a bit of an oversteer moment coming onto the pit straight. And I was just going to say about Tucson's move, it's very nice if you can get that done well before the braking zone into Vale, because then you can still choose to brake on the rubbered line, because the amount of retardation available offline there is greatly reduced. So you can try to pull off a fantastic move down the inside, but quite often you're compromised under braking. and it's very awkward then to defend the overtake you've just made and make a clean exit.
Yes, and Matt Tucson, by the way, got his first top 10 in the World Championship in his first start at Sepang, of course. But he'd be keen to add to that. He was in his last round at Melbourne. He was 14th as well, so definitely fighting back from a little absence and a slightly tricky start to his career in the World Championship. Of course, the man who I think he was runner-up in the amateur series a couple of years ago, Matt Tucson. As Janos Braxtok now sets the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 30.2. So yet again lowering the margin. He's a second lap quicker now than Sander Callas, who's 1.6 seconds ahead of him. So Braxtok has got a chance to get ahead of Callas and then catch up to the back of Patrick Hanko here. So all of a sudden, Patrick Hanko has got a big, important role in this race to hold up Callas and Braxtok and protect his teammate, essentially, on that hard tyre strategy then. So it definitely looks like Schluter and Hanko are trying to perfect the two-stop here.
We think Braxtok is stopping again, yeah, because he's on mediums, isn't he?
He's got to, because he hasn't used another compound, whereas Callas has done 20 laps on the hards to start the race, so he potentially could do like one more stop and get to the end, because I don't think the mediums are going to be in decent shape if he does. How many laps we got left?
He's 31. yeah,
it would be. Yeah,
he's definitely stopping again, but he's got strategic flexibility now because he's used both compounds, so that's a nice thing. He can decide to fight Braxtok on hards and him on mediums, which would be an interesting scenario.
Yeah, I think Braxtok won't want to pit too early though off of this medium stint, but I think in terms of the tyre life, he's only been able to get 12 and 13 laps out of his two medium tyre stints, which is a bit worrying. It does limit what Optimal can really do. It's just got to rely on Braxtok making the moves here and being stuck behind someone like Callas, who he's done very, very well to catch up to. Set two fastest laps of the race. Incredibly strong, especially in that first sector. But now, this is where Callas will start. While he's trying to catch Patrick Hanko, he is going to now have to start getting defensive potentially in this stint, unless strategically he thinks the wiser move is not to defend into Brooke Clinton. Indeed, he sticks all the way to the right-hand side, and Braxtok is through without really much of a fight there. So he is hoping to use Braxtok to slipstream his way to the back of the two Go teams.
Yeah, I think that was always going to happen. Braxtok could have told us what flavour of gearbox oil that Callas was using. I think he was so close. But yeah, so he's made it through. He's on the fresher rubber. So now it's a case of Callas trying to stay in touch, I guess. And his time to shine will come when he bolts on potentially another pair of medium tyres at his next stop. And Braxtok now has got to really use up these mediums that he's on. Yeah, both cars in front of him on hards, and both of them from opposing teams.
He's definitely got the bit between his teeth, doesn't he? And very much so. He's sort of got to do, I don't want to say qualifying laps, but it's almost there to sort of make the strategy work. Because Hanko now coming in, that is interesting, because that's going to drop him behind Callas and Zux and Fournier, isn't it? So that means Schluter extending means that he is not really going to have that buffer, but he has got that 7-second gap to Braxtok at the moment, even though Braxtok is taking about over a second and a half per lap out of him at the present moment. Here comes Hanko. He's going to come out in P7, I think. There's a comfortable gap just ahead of Jase Lahtinen and behind Tom Oldenmenger. So Patrick Hanko then still, I think, very much on course at that bottom step of the podium, depending on how things work out with Braxtok and Callas, who he's very much in a race against. So I wonder, I don't think Patrick Hanko is going to try and one stop his way to the air. Well, he's just made his second stop, hasn't he, for hard? So yeah, he's
I think he's got to go to the end. Yeah, well, I mean, we're on lap 31. He's only got to do 21 laps on the hards, and there's no way he could do anything with an extra pit stop. He's 22 seconds from the net lead at the moment, and that driver has to pit. So it's actually going to be very close, because if we think a pit stop's somewhere around 20 seconds, Hanko is only 2 seconds off the net lead. Whenever when Schluter rejoins, but Schluter will rejoin on fresh rubber, and Henko will be on pretty worn hards over the closing few laps. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and Schluter, of course, I wonder why he's extending, because he's just another lap now, rather than converging to the same strategy as Henko. I think maybe Mark Schluter might be holding out to try and get on the mediums for the final stint, but it does seem 20 laps to go. It's doable, but he will have to stretch and feel the pain during this stint. And he, as I say, Braxok hasn't been slowing down at all. You can see him in the background there. He's 5.5 seconds behind him now, so he's taking chunks out of him. And Callas is less than 2 seconds behind, doing a similarly great job as well. So Callas, I think, is taking about 8/10 out of him per lap, last lap. And Braxok, this last lap, is taking, definitely over 1.5 seconds, because 1 minute 30.6 versus 1:32.1. So, yeah, that is coming up to 2 seconds a lap.
So Schluter's only stopped once, and that was on lap 13. So what's he's done now? 19 laps on these hards. But he's a fair way from home, isn't he? If he was to put on mediums, he's a fair way from home. He's got a bit of a conundrum at the moment.
Yeah, I think you sort of got these two strategies. One where you pit for the hards for the final stint, and then one where you pit for the mediums. And he's trying to sort of bridge the difference between the two, whereas Patrick Hanko decided to sort of cut his losses and sort of just go for the hards at not the earliest opportunity, but fairly early on, knowing that the hards can get to the end. Then as we get back to Viscott versus Boratovsky, these two former teammates at MV Conquer. I think they still technically are, although Viscott, of course, in the World Championship, Boratovsky typically competing in the Pro Championship, but he is doing another substitute drive as he Latinen in the other MV Conquest pitting from 8th position. It's definitely been a strong performance from Jase Latinen, who has been solidly in the top 10 all day, and he's yet to finish in the top 10. He's got 2 11th places in the World Championship to his name. If he could end this in 8th or 9th position, that would be a big, big result for him to beat the likes of Zalagianis, Mancini, and Tucson, who are all pretty much on a similar level to him. I would suggest he's going to come out just alongside Mancini, actually. Mancini goes for a little look on the outside into Village. Now he goes into the loop. It's going to be late on the inside. Mancini, no. He decides, Lacknell on the fresh tyres, he's better off following him rather than getting stuck into a fight in that particular scenario. So, yeah, they're going to head off trying to catch Zalagianis for 8th position now.
Do you think Hanko and Schluter are discussing what they're doing? Because they're the same team. Hanko is now in the net lead. He's only 16 seconds behind. Oh, no, Schluter's pitted. That's why he's closing on him so quickly. It appeared to me that Schluter was just trying to build up a bit of a tyre delta, so that when he came out, he had a few laps fresher tyre than his teammate Hanko. So let's see where he comes out.
Yeah, a lot of activity in the pit lane, because Sander Callas and Jeffrey Fournier are pitting as well. So
yeah,
let's see.
That was a bit awkward. Sander Callas looks like he'd slightly missed his pit box there, and that can be costly. A couple of seconds is a long time in a Grand Prix.
Yeah, it certainly is, but he'll be thankfully made that move earlier on Zux and Oldermengo, isn't it? So we can now see Patrick Hanko, as you said, has come out ahead of Mark Schluter with Patrick Hanko's second personal best laps of the race, 1:31.1s, but it's still Braxok, the fastest man out there. But unlike Hanko and Schluter, he owes us another pit stop. So Braxok will have to make the moves to win this race in the final stint, we think, and he's trying to build as big of a gap as he can, so that he only has to pass Hanko rather than Schluter as well. But given that they're both going for the hards, the only reason to do this, to my mind, is so that Schluter's got the fresher tyres of the two in this final stint, even if he's lost track position. I think the plan might be for Schluter to catch up to the back of Hanko, and once again for the two not to fight each other too hard. This, of course, has put Oldermengo up to 3rd and Zux up to 2nd, but they, of course, will both owe us another pit stop before the end.
Yeah, so Callis is on fresh hards and won't stop again. If we deduct 20 seconds off the gap, that's putting him in a fight for second place with Zoltan Sux.
I think he's right behind Schluter, isn't he? Oh no, he's a little bit further behind. Sorry, that's my timing screen playing tricks on me. It said he was 65 hundredths behind, but he is, as you can see, a fair distance, about 8 seconds behind. But because he converged onto that same strategy and, as you say, lost a second or two in the pits, instead of being about 6 seconds behind, he is just 8.5 seconds down. But yeah, Callis has still got every chance that he can work his way into contention, because we still don't know if Braxock's strategy is really going to work. At the moment, if Braxock pit, he would come out ahead of Callis. So Braxock has really got to hope when the mediums fall off that Callis doesn't sneak back into that pit window, because that's going to be absolutely crucial.
And I was just looking at Tom Oldenmenger then and wondering if we're going to see any sort of last 5-lap Oldenmenger magic. But Tom is on hards, and I think he'll need to stop again, because I think he's only stopped once. So maybe he'll put on some mediums and really turn it on.
Yeah, I do remember a race at Imola in the Pro Championship last season where Oldenmenger got the soft tyre to last a ridiculously long time, about the stint of a hard tyre stint, length of a hard tyre stint. And you can see Hanko and Schluter closing up. Schluter clearly a bit faster than Hanko at this phase of the race, and they know it's absolutely critical to Schluter's chances of victory and of extending that championship lead to the maximum possible length, that Hanko does not get in his way here, because Braxock is still a very clear and present threat to them, still lapping in the high minute 130s, whereas Hanko and Schluter 130, 1-0, 137. So Schluter is lapping about 2 tenths quicker than Braxock at the moment, but he could potentially lap even quicker if he didn't have his teammate slap bang in front of him.
Yeah, they're sort of flying in formation, aren't they, at the moment?
Exactly, and they are both closing, of course, quite quickly on Oldenmenger, who's only about 1.7 seconds ahead of Patrick Hanko at the present moment here. So the question is, do they want to deal with Oldenmenger and then do the swap, or let Schluter make the first move here and try and pass both of them in quick succession? So yeah, Go Team, again, because they pit Hanko early, they've got fresh tyres for Schluter, but now he needs to gain that track position really, just to make sure Braxock is completely covered off here. But yeah, in this first stint, first sector, Schluter 25-0, Braxock 25-3. So at the moment, here we go. There's DRS is open, and that's very early. Around the outside to lift off goes Patrick Hanko there. So Go Team playing the team game, and Mark Schluter is back up into P4, and he'll get a clear run at Tom Oldenmenger then. And that is bad news for Braxock, but great news for Mark Schluter, as here comes Jesse Latin. He's going to go around the outside of George Zalagianis into Stowe, late on the brakes around the outside. A lot of confidence, a lot of grip to pull that one off. And MV Congress could be in for their best result in the World Championship of P8 if Latinen can hold on to this one.
Yeah, well, that'll be a pretty impressive move, because MV Conquest, relatively new team, founded by Mikhaila Vincendovic, who's been a long-term racer in Formula SimRacing in the 2nd and 3rd division. So founded his own team, and he's got some talent on board, and they're doing great things. So hats off to those guys with such a new team getting into the top 10 in World Championship.
Jesse Latinen's also had a very, very good season in a Grand Prix Virtual World Championship Formula Sprint 1, I believe, where he has been a very consistent race winner and threat for victory of the Apex Grand Prix team. Not to be confused with the team from a certain movie that may have come out in the last couple of months.
Look at Schluter going. You're watching Schluter, aren't you? Yeah, exiting from Chapel there. Not Chapel,
was
onto
Chapel.
the Hangar Straight.
And the outside.
Oldenmenger.
Oh, that was crucial then that he held on to that one, because otherwise he would have had to wait another lap to pass Oldenmenger. But yeah, Tom heading for the pit lane anyway. So yeah, Schluter then will get promoted back into the top 3, and he continues then. Did Schluter lose any time? No, actually he was half a second quicker than Braxock that previous lap here. So yeah, this is decision time for Janos Braxock. He's lost about a second to Callis is about 24.9 seconds, 23.9 actually. Behind. So Sander Callas is approaching that pit window before too long. And Janis Braxot want to make that final stop. You would presumably think he's going for softs for the final stint rather than hards. Because if he can't go for another set of mediums because he's got to use different compound. If he goes for hards, he's on the same tyres as Schluter and Hanko, and he's got to pass them. If he goes for softs, that would be the ideal scenario, wouldn't it? Because then he can, you would think, make fairly short work of them with the group advantage he's got, provided he hasn't got to do a monster long stint on the softs and just burn them out before the end of the race.
Well, it looks like he pitted on lap 26 or thereabouts, so he's done 12 laps on the medium, and he's going to need to pull off miracles to make the soft work, I think, from this far out.
Yeah, he could be forced onto the hards then.
I think the soft has probably got a ceiling of 10 laps. I may be wrong. And obviously at the end of the race, the cars are lighter and the track is grittier, and that's easily worth a couple of laps. But I think it'd be sweaty palm and sweaty forehead territory if you went for longer than 10 laps on some softs with somebody breathing down your neck on a good set of mediums or even hards. So it'd be a brave man, but make it exciting for us if he does.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, for Braxot, this has sort of got shades of the 2023 race where Braxot again tried to do the free stop strategy, and he just sort of could not make the moves in the final stint, unfortunately, and that was proved to be his undoing. Of course, it is we don't have the hybrid system anymore. It's he's got 90 seconds of push to pass to play with. Wouldn't be surprised if Callas was using it earlier when he made the double move, by the way, on Oldermenger and Zux. But,
well, good use of it if he did.
Certainly, yeah. Well, if he gets on the podium, we might even be able to ask Sandro at the end of this, as Marsa now pits from P11. So that's going to put Marsa solidly outside the top 10, behind, I think, Tucson and Borotovsky, with a few more moves to make then, as we look at Mancini closing on the back of George Zalagianis here. And we spoke about Latinen earlier. Tom Oldermenger has pit, of course, lap ago for mediums, which should be able to get him to the end. But yeah, Latinen is only about 3.5 seconds behind him then. So Oldermenger, he will be fighting a Jeffrey Fournier, I think, is also going to the end on a very long, hard tire stint. And Fournier is only less than 5 seconds ahead. So I think Tom Oldermenger has got a great chance to finish in the top 6 here, depending on how things play out ahead of him. Sander Callas, meanwhile, 23 seconds exactly behind Janis Braxot. So Braxot has got to decide, does he want to risk it, stay out a bit longer and go for those softs for the final 10, 12 laps of the race? Or does he pit now, as we see Mancini doing the same thing? Could he be going for the softs as well?
Well, his Braxot's pace is not so good compared to Schluter and Hanko, but it's strong compared to Zoltan Zuk. So, yeah, if he comes pits, he's going to rejoin in 4th, and he's going to be 5 seconds behind Hanko on my calculations. And
he's 22 now ahead of ahead of Callas, though, is Braxot. So Callas keeps eking into that pit window and setting like mid 1 minute 30s. Whereas Braxot is about a second a lap slower than him at the moment. So if he stays out 2 more laps, it's going to get very, very risky on the pit exit here.
Well, that's very true, but potentially a massive tyre delta versus Callas. So, I can't wait to see it all unfold. And you know what? I think he might have been right. Oh, no, Braxot is entering the pit lane now. So let us see exactly what rubber he chooses. 12 laps from home.
Yeah, Zuk's coming in.
He's gone for the soft. He's got on my screen. He's gone for the soft tyre, but sometimes it can take a moment to update.
Oh, he better not have gone for another stint on mediums. Yeah, it's definitely the softs. That's what RaceView's telling me as well. I think Zux is doing the exact same. Through go Schluter and Hanko. It is now a go team 1-2 for the first time with 11 laps left to go. Braxot has come out actually just ahead of Callas then, so that has worked out to perfection there. That slightly slow stop from Callas has opened the door for Braxot to do this strategy without having to make that extra overtake now. And now this is where the chase begins, and Patrick Hanko will have to defend Mark Schluter, his teammate, as best he can. Go Team might even try to give Patrick Hanko a little bit of a DRS. that's risky because it just brings Schluter closer to Braxock here. So what they may as well do now is try and have Schluter disappear up the road on the fresher hards and have Hanko just hold Braxock up for as long as he can.
Yeah, well, Callis is going to be kicking himself slightly over that very minor misjudgment approaching his pit crew. Braxock to Hanko is 3.2 seconds. So is that 2 laps? Is that 3 laps? Because I think 5 laps
Oh,
in.
Zalagianis all over the back of Mancini and is forced to go the long way around into Brooklands there. That was very robust defending from Mirko Mancini in the Vega Valley eSports. But yeah, Zalagianis was not about to be intimidated there as we see a swap. That is our 2 Optiminals. Zux, I think, being let through by Jeffrey Fournier. Fournier, of course, on the 2-stop strategy, whereas they're both on the 2-stop, of course, but they're sort of in inverse strategies of the other, whereas Zux is only now just put on the mediums and should be a lot quicker than him.
2-second gap now, Braxock to Hanko.
Here we go then. So Braxock is this strategy could yet well pay out for him, but this is going to be very, very tense here. And don't forget, Callis not far behind either. If Hanko and Braxock start fighting each other, it could play into his hands as we see that is Mark Schluter being let through by Lucas Viscott there in the MB Conquest there, who's a lap down. And Braxock and Hanko, we're hoping they make short work of Viscott as well, because otherwise that's going to be a bit of a setback for them.
Tom Oldenming going about 0.7 of a second quicker than Fournier and only 3 seconds behind him, 2.5 seconds behind him. So Tom is well in shape to catch Jeffrey and potentially cement himself a top 6, which I'm sure he'll be very pleased with.
Indeed. So final 10 laps of this British Grand Prix, we have a scintillating finishing prospect, Janos Braxock, setting purple sectors on the soft tyre here, but this is where the trouble starts. He's got not only to clear Patrick Hanko, but Mark Schluter 1.7 seconds up the road if he wants to fight for victory here, and he has only got a short number of laps in which to do this here, and additionally to that, he's got to make sure he still has soft tyres at the end once he's passed Hanko to fight Schluter with as well here. But yeah, Patrick Hanko knows exactly what he has to do to protect his teammate and also to help Go Team's chances in the Teams Championship. And Hanko immediately gets defensive, tries to break the toe on the way into Brooklands here. But Braxock will never have been more determined to get through than right now. He's seen so many chances to win slip between his fingers, and he's not about to let this one become one of them.
He's got a lot of grip advantage. I was a bit surprised he didn't actually manage to get
Oh, he's going up the
Hanko.
inside. He's having a look into Cops there, but Hanko uses a bit of his push to pass to hold on to that position then to prevent a kamikaze dive up the inside. And now Braxock, I think, is lining him up for the hanger straight, David.
Yeah, well, exactly. Braxock's got to measure it out a little bit and not. He's got to use his softs, but not punish them too much. And wow, Hanko is really moving around to make life awkward.
Well, that is exactly what he's got to do then. He's under no obligation to make life easy for Janos Braxock. But of course, he's had to wait 6 years, 6 long, hard, punishing years to win World Championship Grand Prix. And now he's just these 2 Go teams, these pesky flies in the ointment from his perspective. But for Go Team, they've got a Teams Championship. They want to retake the lead of 22 points with themselves and Go Team. So it is all very much personal, very much all up for grabs here, as we see again getting sucked in almost Janos Braxock to the back of Patrick Hanko, our reigning pro champion. And again, down the Wellington straight, he tucks to the inside, but Braxock's a lot closer this time. He tucks to the outside. He's going to try and go the long way round. He sweeps through. Will the softs have enough grip? He just sweeps through. And that was a superbly judged move from Janos Braxock right when he needed it. And now he needs to disappear up the road to the tune of 2.5 seconds to get right back up to our championship leader, to our race leader, Mark Schluter. Battle is well and truly on.
A stunning move by Braxock, and a move you can only make if you know you've got a quality driver that you're passing as well. Because if Hanko had misjudged that or if he'd played ugly, that could have ended up in tears for Brackshock. So compliments to both drivers. Brackshock used those softs beautifully to go around Hanko, and Hanko drove to the limits of his car and not beyond. So they've both got four wheels in their wagon, and we get to see a fantastic race finish.
Indeed we do. Mark Schluter, by the way, is starting to respond to the pace of Brackshock, 1 minute 30.5, and that's pretty impressive because he's been on those hard tires for 10 laps, as now we see Oldenmenger reeling in Jeffrey Fournier on the end of his fishing line here, and is Tom Oldenmenger, the Dutchman, going to reel in a big fish here, or is he going to have to fall just short in that battle for P6 then? But the medium's working well. Crucially, he was about 5/10, half a second quicker than Jeffrey Fournier the previous lap, and he's even quicker, about 7/8 quicker on this particular lap as well. So definitely Tom Oldenmenger's going to get a chance before we see Brackshock close in on Schluter. He was 8/10 quicker the previous lap then. If he keeps catching at that rate, he will have enough chances, enough time to launch an assault on Mark Schluter before the end. And this is going to be a really, really exciting finish to the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And so many races we saw in the past where we saw the winner here. I remember Colin Spork winning often by a mile in a couple of races that he did here. And then last season, I think it was just basically a DRS train, a very tense finish, but it was Yannick Bock that held on for Evolution in 2024 from the two race clutches, who ended up swapping positions, I think, near the end of the race, with Janos Brackshock, of all people, catching them. And once again, it's Brackshock catching. Ironically, in a way, the reduced field we have this season has sort of played into his hands with that free-stop strategy in a way, because he's had a couple cars less to pass, but nonetheless, the cars he has had to pass, he's done a fantastic job to make short work of. And now Oldenmenger
really hauling in.
Oh, look at this!
What a move! What a move!
Just completely washed out through Stowe, and Tom Oldenmenger didn't need to be asked twice for that one, did he? Immediately up the inside, and that's up to P6 after a tricky qualifying. Tom Oldenmenger is having one of his trademark recoveries, where he's just so kind on his tyres, and he just picks them off one by one by one.
So Brackshock now up the front is within 1 second of Schluter, and we are on lap 46 of 52, so 6 laps to go. And Schluter is hoping that Brackshock has not measured out the performance of his soft tyres well enough, and that he's used too much of them up. But Brackshock's had a few laps in clear air, hasn't he? I think he was stuck behind Hanko for 1 or 2 laps, but not an excessive amount. So he should still have enough tyre life to make this work.
Yeah, and it looks like our leaders are about to lap Andrei Borotovsky. Sadly, we have lost Lucas Viscott from the race, who was lapped a bit earlier on. So that's a big shame for MV Conquest, that they've still got Latin and in P8 having a fantastic race. And in fact, I believe he is matching the lap times of Jeffrey Fournier ahead of him. He's comfortably 18 seconds ahead of Mirko Mancini, who of course is on the free stop strategy, as we ride on board with Brackshock. 7/10, he's nearly within DRS range, and he's got, let's see, about less than 6 laps to go then. And Mark Schluter will be feeling very, very vulnerable. He's got to hold on for as long as he can, but Brackshock, there just seems to be no stopping him today with the pace that he's got at his disposal. And on those softs, the only real hope for Mark Schluter is that Brackshock has used up too much of the soft tyre at this point, and that his charge halts a bit.
Well, 2 laps ago, he was a second quicker than Schluter. Last lap, he was half a second quicker than Schluter. So it's either the dirty air, or he's starting to feel a bit of tyre deg on those softs. But it's going to be an amazing drive to see exactly what he does from here on in on those tyres.
Yeah, and Mark Schluter under a lot of pressure. Him and Go Team have thrown everything strategically at trying to keep Brackshock behind them now. And this is where we're going to see, will it be enough, or will Optiminal once again steal the victory? They've won the last 2 races on the jot with Ruben Machete, and of course we lost Ruben early on due to his illness flaring up. We hope, Ruben, if you are watching this, that you have been enjoying the race nonetheless. Even though you are not in it, your teammate has still got a chance of stealing the win and helping in that Drivers' Championship. Borotovsky on the soft, so he's not been caught quite as quickly by Schluter as I think they might have imagined. So it could well be a clean fight between these two to the end without any lap traffic interrupting them. And look at Braxel within half a second now. He's going to get the benefit of the DRS and a healthy dose of slipstream down the Wellington straight to boot as well. And this is where Schluter has got to try defensively, has got to just try and hold up Braxock and prevent him getting the traction down on exits as much as possible. Make Braxock drive the lines that Schluter wants him to, rather than forcing himself in a position where Braxock can just breeze up the inside of him.
Well, Braxock, while going very quickly, he is very much looking after his tyres. I was riding on board with him through Copse, and rather than just pin it through Copse and crucify the front left, he downshifted, rotated the car, lifted the throttle momentarily, and then pinned it again once the car was going where he wanted. All those things save your front tyres. So I think Braxock is really, really doing his best to make these softs last, but it also use their pace. So it could go either way.
It certainly could then, and Mark Schluter will be hoping for those softs to degrade and fall to pieces before the end. Borotowski, his lap times in front, 1:30.9 the last lap, so he is starting to fall into their clutches actually. Braxock was only 2/10 quicker than Schluter the previous lap, so the problem is every lap he stays stuck behind, the harder it gets to complete this move, because the softs will just start to fade away underneath him as much as he tries to nursemaid them. It could be this comes down to a mistake. Who is going to make a mistake between the two of them that decides victory, as we saw in the pro race, didn't we, when Van den Hudding made that mistake right at the end that handed the win to Single, as actually Schluter gets a little bit squirrely through Village and the loop. And again, Braxock is he can almost reach out and taste that Go Team rear wing, can't he? But unfortunately, not only is his tongue not long enough, it doesn't seem like his softs are quite able to give him the straight line speed and the torque on exit here for him to really slide up the inside there. So if they've saved a bit of push to pass, they are going to be waiting for the final lap, aren't they, to use it?
Yeah, well, indeed, and it's 2 steps of tyre difference between the two, hard versus soft. The hard, as we touched on before, they sort of go away from you. It feels like about 1% per lap. So they just hang in there and you can do whatever you want on them. And the soft is like eating an ice cream on the beach on a hot day. It just feels amazing at first, and then suddenly they've gone. So it still could go either way, but Braxock's going to kind of need to get this done sooner rather than later.
Yeah, DRS brings him a bit closer again into this final sector, but again, it's so near yet so far. Schluter is doing everything right at the moment here, and Braxock, that first ever career victory, being denied him by the man who's got 2 to his name from the opening 2 rounds of the season at Bahrain and at Melbourne as well. Look at Borotowski being reeled in as well, 1:31.6 that previous lap. That will be a distraction that Schluter could well do without, and Braxock will be getting a little bit excited here, knows that at the dying stages of this race, the traffic could just, if not hold up Mark Schluter, just give him that little bit of a distraction where he's got to divide his concentration on defending, but also trying to lap cleanly the Squire Nation eSports car in front of him. And look at Braxock, a little bit closer than the lap before, but again, does he nail the exit from Luffield? It looks like Schluter is just getting the rubber down exactly where he needs to on those hards. And I think Braxock knows it's really going to come down to a risky move. He can get close enough through Maggots, Beckett's Chapel and use the DRS. That's got to be his best chance.
Yeah, riding on board with Braxock, it looks to me that the rear grip is going away a little bit on exit. He's the car is moving around a little bit more now, and but he's still very, very close to Schluter and putting so much pressure on him. It's going to be impressive if Schluter doesn't crack under this much pressure.
Yeah, and of course, he is leading the championship for a good reason as well. And you can see Borotowski starting to be caught. He will have to let them through, surely, because otherwise he'll start giving DRS to Mark Schluter as well. There we go, well off track.
He certainly got out of the way there. He normally almost hit the people doing the catering.
Exactly, yeah. That's where Colapinto went off in qualifying there this year, isn't it? In the Alpines. Look at this. Again, Schluter has to turn in to defend, and Braxok resists the temptation to make a dive bomb there and lose everything, because that could just hand victory to Patrick Hanko in third, couldn't it? But yeah. Meanwhile, Santa Callas is actually starting to catch Hanko. He's only about 3.5 seconds behind, but we are on the penultimate lap. It looks like that charge from Callas may have to be rewarded with a 4th place. I think it would still be Callas's best finish of the season, because I think 5th is still his best result from the 3 that he got in a row in the last 3 consecutive rounds. But yeah, Janos Braxok knows he is running out of time and running out of opportunities here. And look at this, Schluter is almost out of DRS range actually on this lap. 7/10 of course the gap as they go through Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, and that will be demoralizing for Braxok if he's not able to get it ahead of this final lap of the race then. And Schluter, has he hung on long enough? No, in fact, Braxok does get DRS, so he will close in ever so slightly then as we're going towards this final lap of the race here. But both of these drivers have put in spectacular performances here. Braxok, you've got to say fair play to this aggressive strategy. But oh, a spin in the background. I think that's Borotowski in the wall. So yeah, Andrzej Borotowski, I think, has crashed the Squire Nation eSports car into the wall on the final lap of the race at Stowe. But nonetheless, Braxok, that will not distract him too much. I think Borotowski is going to make it to the pits and put on a new front wing, do the final lap. But of course, he was a lap down, so that's 1 less that he has to do compared to the leaders. But look at this, Braxok now ever so slightly further back. Mark Schluter knows he's just got to keep doing what he's doing for another 2 sectors, and his 3rd win of the season is going to fall into place, and that's going to be a big advantage in the championship. We started today thinking that Ruben Machete would have a chance to cut into the margin, but ultimately it was an illness beyond anybody's control, really, least of all Ruben Machete, that has ruled him out of the contention for this one, and it allows Mark Schluter a chance to really stretch his legs in the championship from that 13 points that he had. But still a long way to go, of course. It could go the other way in future rounds, but we are at the halfway point of the season. Braxok, though, 1 sector to go. He's a little bit too far back. He's not got DRS on this particular lap, so I think it is just about to end this battle. Through the final couple of corners, through the Vale and Club, comes Mark Schluter. Well, he qualified on the 2nd row. He had to make that strategy work. He held off Braxok under huge pressure, and it's Schluter that's going to take his 3rd win of the season. He wins the British Grand Prix. Janos Braxok falls agonizingly short of his first victory, just 9/10 of a second as cross line. Patrick Hanko will take his 2nd podium of the season in 3rd. Then it will be Callas falling 2.9 seconds behind him in 4th. Zolt Zux will take 5th from Tom Oldermenger, who will finish just 90 seconds down in 6th. Jeffrey Fournier ultimately has to settle for 7th. Yasse Landon gets his best ever result in 8th.
Jeffrey Fournier has crashed
Club.
He's crashed at Club. I don't think he's going to take the line.
Oh dear, would love to see a replay of that, but it looks like Fournier has hit trouble into the Vale and Club. So we'll have to see if we can...
rewinding it now to have a quick look so I can tell you.
There we go, but that has handed Yasse Landon a P7. Mancini's up to 8th, and Zalgianis P9. And I think Jeffrey Fournier has fallen behind Matt Tucson as well then. So, yeah, unfortunately, we can't get a replay of it on stream, but I think we are trying quite hard to do that. But yeah, nonetheless, a brilliant race, a brilliant finish between Mark Schluter and Janos Braxok, but heartbreak right at the end for Jeffrey Fournier, who was looking at least good for 7th position. And I think he may, has he tripped over someone while trying to lap them, or has he dropped it on his own?
He was on his own, and I'm just watching it really closely now in slow motion. He just suddenly got a rear lock up and turned hard left. It might have been an electronic failure.
Oh dear. Well, that's the 2nd Optiminal to have to retire. At least it was right at the end of the race, so I think Fournier will still be classified P12 ahead of Borotowski, because Borotowski was a lap down, of course. Yes, that is gutting for Jeffrey Fournier, and crucial points lost or optimal. At least Zux was still in 5th, of course. So their 2 cars will still finish in the top 5 to limit the damage that Go Team had done to them today. But yeah, nonetheless, a really, really exciting race. And you've got to say Mark Schluter deservedly won, but you will feel a bit of sympathy, definitely, for Janos Brax. I'll be interested to hear what he has to say at the end of this one. And I think now might be a good opportunity to look at the final results from that exciting British Grand Prix.
Yeah,
so
I think Fournier had a failure. I think he's had a technical failure somehow.
That is gutting. And Jeffrey Fournier, of course, who was 3rd in the championship going into this one, is, I think, going to lose it again, possibly to Tom Oldermenger or Sander Callis and Patrick Hanko, all of whom scored as big. And don't forget, Braxot will gain a lot of ground in the championship out of today as well, despite missing out narrowly on the win. But he still pulled off that brilliant move on Hanko, exceeded only by the double move from Sander Callis through on the exit of Kopp's corner. So, final results then, we can confirm Mark Schluter wins after 52 laps of racing action, with Janos Braxok in 2nd, 9/10 behind him. So close yet so far for the Hungarian. Patrick Hanko is 3rd. Sander Callis settles for 4th in the end, with Zoltzux in 5th. Tom Oldermenger recovers up to 6th, with Jesse Lattinen getting up to 7th. A really brilliant finish for MV Conquest and the young Finn, Jesse Lattinen, who's really proving himself at a high level against some tough competition. Mecca Mancini in the other Vague Valley Esports gets P8. Jeffrey Fournier is showing P9 here, but it is actually George Zalagianis, I believe, who's quite classified P9, with Matt Tucson, who's a teammate in the 3rd ground effect, rounding out the top 10. In 11th will be Nando Master, with Jeffrey Fournier falling down to 12th. Andrei Borotovsky, despite crashing on his penultimate lap of the race, does get across the line after pitting for a new front wing in 13th. So that's the first net finish for Squire Nation Esports in Ron Squire's team's short history. Not getting to the end, sadly, were Lucas Viscott, who crashed, Ruben Machete, who retired, had to withdraw early in the race due to illness, from 3rd position, and Christian Pascal, who, did not really have the rub of the green at the start of this one either. So then, the race concludes, and let's see if we can get a few messages to our top 3 in the championship to see if they want to be interviewed by us. But interested to hear your thoughts on that one, David. So obviously, a big another twist in the championship, not the one that I think we were hoping for in terms of a close fight, but nonetheless, take nothing away from Mark Schluter, who performed excellently. This is a very good track for him, and he really had to do the work in that middle stint to make sure that the hards were fresh enough that he wasn't having to do too much tire saving himself when the soft shod Braxot came upon him at the end there.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the fight that was in the script. We expected Ruben Meshidi to be out there duking it out with Schluter for the win, or certainly for the podium. But it was an incredible race. To think that we had several very exciting and dynamic changes for position, not only in the last stint, but probably in the last 5 laps. And it was a real nail-biter when Braxot took on Schluter 12 laps from home and put on the softs. It was a very brave strategy and probably his only real chance of pulling off the win. So very exciting racing, some great driving. And I think Silverstone's delivered, FSR's delivered, and it was a lot of fun.
Exactly, and this is how the championship standings now shake out, with a new second place man, Sander Callis. So that consistency, he keeps getting those 4th places, doesn't he? That's his 4th in a row. He must be getting sick of that, desperate to taste the podium, I think, and it will be very much deserved when it does happen, as I'm sure it will before the end of the season. But yeah, Ruben Machete, his second non-finish, meaning a lot of his hard work from the last 2 races is a little bit undone there. So very much out of his control, as I say. But yeah, Mark Schluter, his 3rd win of the season means he is now, I think, a good 37 points ahead in the championship. So his gap is about where it was I think, was it after Melbourne when he won those first 2 races? He was leading by about 34 points or something. So he's extended the gap from round 2 by another couple of points. Callis, though, still very much technically in contention, a point ahead of Machete. Patrick Hanko's moved up to 4th as well on 61 points, 7 behind Machete. Then we got Jeffrey Fournier, another 4 points behind, dropping down to 5th. Tom Aldermenger, despite a strong race, actually drops to 6th in this points, a point behind Jeffrey Fournier due to the strong races of Callas and Hanko. Zolczyk stays where he is in P7 on 52 points. Then is Janos Braxot climbing to 8th on 45 points. Zalagianis is still 9th, or down to 9th for 32 points. And Mirko Mancini now rounds out the top 10 on 22. As now we have got our race winner that is ready to talk to us. So let's hear the thoughts of Go Team's very own Mark Schluter. So Mark Schluter joins us now, having held off Janos Braxok to take a brilliant victory, his 3rd of the season, on one that puts him very solidly into the lead of the championship going into the second half of the season. Mark, I'm sure you're going to have to catch your breath after that one. That you had to drive quite the defensive drive in those final 8-7 laps or so. But nonetheless, you absolutely pulled it off, and you and your teammate Patrick Hanko played the team game very, very smartly today. And yeah, it was that middle stint where you extended enough so that you didn't have to push the hard tires too hard in that final stint that really made the difference, I think, today. But tell us from your perspective, that must be a brilliant feeling to win.
Yeah, of course. Was very weird to see Brackshock going for the free stop, because overtaking is near impossible. You would have to have like what he did, like 2 seconds a lap advantage. Otherwise, it was just impossible. But yeah, we were always going for the 2-stop, trying for having track position, and I'm glad it worked out in the end. But unfortunate for Patrick, because I think a 1-2 was possible today.
Yeah, certainly it was inferior at least, but Braxton made a very, very solid move around the outside of him, I think, in the closing stages there. So obviously, unfortunately, Ruben Machete had to retire early on due to illness. So you go into the second half of the championship with a 37-point lead now, Mark, in the drivers. I think the teams has also closed up considerably between yourself and Optimal. You've got to be feeling confident going into the second half of the season now, because you've won 3 out of 5 races, and your closest rival, as I say, 37 points behind in the form of Santa Callas now. Obviously, no room for complacency and overconfidence, but you've been doing a fantastic job so far.
Yeah, just trying to be consistent as possible, and hopefully don't make the same mistake as in Austria. Try to finish on the podium all races now, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And David, before we move on to our next interview, do you have any questions for Mark?
I was just going to ask Mark if those hard tyres were feeling like an old friend the final 4 or 5 laps when Janos Brakshock's softs had clearly gone away a little bit. Were you feeling, did you have warm feelings for those hard tyres?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I was just hoping that his softs would drop off. Glad they did. Was just trying to have a good exit out of the S's, out of turn 4, because I think that's where he would gain the most time with the fresh tires.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well done. Great drive. Well deserved.
Thank you.
Indeed. And thank you very much again, Mark Schluter, for talking to us, and best of luck for the next race, which I believe is, if I can remember my own calendar, it's Spa, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Belgian Grand Prix at Spa on 28th of September at the end of the month. So we'll see you there, and yeah, good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Also joining us now in the current trucks will be Optimal's very own Janos Braksok. Janos joins us now, and Janos, a day of mixed emotions. You set your 5th career pole position, a brilliant pole lap, by the way, and you do the free stop strategy. It's so nearly worked out. You put in some fantastic moves, particularly on Patrick Hanko near the end, but unfortunately the softs, it looked like they just started to get away from you and weren't performing quite as well in those final few laps when you were stuck behind Mark Schluter then. So is this going to feel like the one that got away, or do you feel you got everything out of that?
To be honest, I'm very pleased with the result. I knew that I only had one chance to overtake Mark, but he did a great job, to be honest. And yeah, I have to congratulate him. He he knew my every moves, where to attack and where to not attack. But yeah, uh, the overtake against Patrick was crucial. It was hard, but yeah, I really enjoyed that moment. But yeah, it is what it is. I've planned the free stop strategy at the beginning, and yeah, for the pole position, yeah, I knew that I'm gonna do the free stop no matter what. But yeah, it's not my championship basically, so I'm really pleased with the P2. But yeah, I will have another chance later on in this season to grab my first win. But yeah, the feeling is the same as usual. Like yeah, last year in Silverstone was yeah also a good race. But yeah, no matter what, the field is new. I think the quality for the World Championship is yeah guaranteed still.
Absolutely, and you're definitely a big part of that quality, Janos. Obviously, you joined a couple of races into the season and with the Optimal team, and they've welcomed you with open arms, and it feels like you're getting more comfortable every race you do. Is Janos Braxok Janos Backsock? Sorry,
Yeah,
that was terrible.
probably. Yeah, yeah, sounds like weird, but yeah,
It's been a
I'm
long commentary,
really
my friend.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I'm still enjoying. Yeah, I feel comfortable in the team. Yeah, my team manager just popped me that we should work in a deeper way in a setup. But yeah, unfortunately for this year, I have some real life issues. Not a main problems, but I don't have enough time like last year I did. But yeah, I try to work more and more with my new team. But anyway, yeah, it's it's really good to be here at Optiminal.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Janos, I was just going to say your overtake on Patrick, which I think was into Brooklands, was a absolutely superb overtake, beautifully judged by you. But I think both of you showed each other respect as well and drove both of your cars to the limit and not beyond. And so a great clean race and a great clean pass like that is always fantastic to see. And well done on an inspired drive. You certainly had the pace on the tyres today, and I think your analysis of it was perfect. I think when you arrived at Mark, you had to get it done quickly, or those softs were going to go away. But still, second place at the British Grand Prix. Well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yep, and thank you again for talking to us, Yanis, and best of luck for the rest of the season. We look forward to seeing you in all the races that you get the time to do. And thanks again for talking to us, and congrats on the P2. I'm sure that first win is not far away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So then, I was hoping we could also talk to Patrick Hanko, but he's been a little bit unresponsive. So, but congrats nonetheless to him on his third career podium, and I think also we're also going to say honourable mention to Sander Callis for that amazing double overtake on Tom Aldermenger and Zoltzux as well, which was certainly definitely one of the moments of the race, up there with Janos's move on Patrick. But yeah, nonetheless, British Grand Prix comes to an end, and it is Mark Schluter that takes the honours, that takes his third win of the season, and increases that lead in the championship. So once again, thanks to all of our partners, the SimRacers Performance Guide, to you, David Arrow, for joining me in commentary, to Gridfinder as well for sponsoring us, and indeed to David Aghayan for running the broadcast at very, very short notice and doing a fantastic job. To Thomas Lenz for helping out behind the scenes. To you for watching at home. My name is Ed Hunter. Thank you very much for watching the fifth round of the FSR World Championship. We'll see you for round 6 in a couple of weeks' time at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa to see if Mark Schluter can keep this up in the lead of the standings. Bye for now, and we'll see you again soon.